The Comptroller General of the United States is the Director of the Government Accountability Office, or GAO, formerly known as the General Accounting Office, a legislative branch agency founded by Congress in 1921 to ensure the fiscal and managerial accountability of the federal government. The Comptroller General has the responsibility to audit the financial statements that the Secretary of the Treasury and the Director of the Office of Management and Budget present to the Congress and the President. For every fiscal year since 1996, when consolidated financial statements began, the Comptroller General has refused to endorse the accuracy of the consolidated figures for the federal budget, citing 1. Serious financial management problems at the Department of Defense. 2. The federal government's inability to adequately account for and reconcile intragovernmental activity and balances between federal agencies. And 3. The federal government's ineffective process for preparing the consolidated financial statements. What better way to hide the wealth of the corporate government than to divide it up into thousands and thousands of branches, making it nearly impossible to add up the actual ownership and wealth of the government as a whole? But don't stop there, for then you must consider that collectively between the municipalities and individual corporate governments within all 50 of the United States proper, America houses over 185,000 different corporate governments, municipalities, and entities, which we might as well call branches. Now, the word collective is vital to comprehend here, for as one giant framework of a country, this collective corporate United States government owns almost everything in sight, and this will be shown later in this presentation. The United States has now been almost completely privatized, with land and municipalities often being sold off to foreign investors and foreign private corporations. In fact, under Executive Order 12803, signed by then President of the United States George H.W. Bush in 1992, the Corporation of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., neither a state nor a part of the 50 states united, this federal corporate government was given the authority to privatize most or all of the infrastructure within the United States without congressional consent or vote. This means that the federal government, or the corporation that acts in lieu of a federal government, can and has allowed the selling of any municipalities or city or any government's assets which were built with taxpayer monies, including but not limited to roads, tunnels, bridges, electricity supply facilities, mass transit, rail transportation, airports, ports, waterways, recycling wastewater treatment facilities, solid waste disposal facilities, hospitals, prisons, schools, and housing. Executive Order 12803 lists these as examples of America's saleable and/or leasable infrastructure. But this is not to be taken as a complete list, as these are just some examples of what our government has been selling off to foreign investors for almost 20 years. Executive Order 12803 names this authority in its destructive pages as infrastructure privatization, and states that this power allows for the, quote, disposition or transfer of an infrastructure asset, such as by sale or by long-term lease from a state or local government to a private party. Now, what did the Founding Fathers think of democracy? The word democracy does not ever appear in the Declaration of Independence nor in the Constitution. It also never appears in any of the 50 state constitutions. In short, we are not supposed to be a democracy. The Founding Fathers actually did everything they could to keep our new country out of a democracy, knowing that a democracy is just a patriotic word for an oligarchy. Here's what some of the Founding Fathers had to say about a democracy. Quote, democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Unquote. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, from the Federalist Papers, essay number 10. Quote, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in the despotism or the extremes of democracy." Unquote. Alexander Hamilton. Quote, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." Unquote. Samuel Adams. Many people in studying the Constitution overlook the fact that this is true. Many Americans think that the Constitution was the inventor of the democracy, and do not understand that Rome was a republic for 230 years, until 27 BC, at which time it became a democracy, lasting for around 207 years. In other words, Rome was a democracy as it fell in 180 AD, as all historically significant democratic empires have. Now, politicians and corporations will denounce this, ridiculously proclaiming that we have a democratic republic. But in truth, the two concepts are too opposite from each other to be used to describe each other. This would be like describing a color as blackish white, knowing that black and white are on opposite sides of the entire spectrum of colors. This is because a majority rule can never represent the minority need, nor the minority of one, as in a true republic like the one described in the Constitution. The Bill of Rights are God-given. They are not privileges to be suffocated and chiseled away by legalities and statutes forced upon the public by corporate government weasels in fancy suits, ties, and black robes. Government-owned corporations were never intended to be the police, the treasury, the municipalities or cities, the army, or the appointed legislators. But this is what we have become, a democracy. A better title would be an oligarchic corporocracy or fascism. Corporations owned through a collective investment by the government, whom advertise popular candidates like Obama, knowing that once he is elected he will appoint former, current, and future corporation lobbyists and attorneys, CEOs, and board members into positions favorable to private corporate government no-bid contracts, thus ensuring future revenue generation for the government-owned corporations while generating wealth and kickbacks for the corporate representatives that are appointed by the elected official, namely the President of the United States Corporation, U.S. Inc.
Thank you. I want to address my remarks first to the chairman and the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee. I think you've done a lot of hard work, and you've done something that, even though I'm not in the consensus, you've done what the Senate was designed to do, is build a consensus around a bill. And there's no question this bill will pass today, and so my congratulations to you and my sincere thanks for some of the things that you put in the bill that we've been working on that are good government projects. So I just wanted to say that from the start. And I'm not going to talk specifically about the bill. I'm going to talk in bigger, broader terms of the problems that are facing us as a country. I had in my hands a book that contains $9 trillion worth of cuts. Not hardly anybody in the Senate read it. They may not agree with 50 or 60 or 70%. But there's certainly somewhere in here consensus for us to actually save a whole lot more money than what we're doing. In 2009, a young little lady by the name of Madeline showed up outside the Senate. And this is what she had draped around her. I'm already $38,375 in debt, and I only own a dollhouse. And since that period of time, we've managed to markedly change that situation for her to the worse. Because today, if she was outside, she'd have that sign around her neck, and it'd say $54,602, and she only owns a dollhouse. And the point I'm trying to make is this hole's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And although I didn't vote for the budget agreement because I think it could have been done better, it was an agreement. It had a consensus as well. So my criticism isn't that the members of this body forced a consensus, and which is exactly what the Senate's supposed to do. But I think as we've done these things, we might have lost sight of the big picture. And so I want to share with you for a minute what the big picture really looks like, because it is not pretty. According to generally accepted accounting principles, that's not the way we run the government, by the way. We don't use real accounting principles. We use all the tricks and smokes and mirrors we can. This number is indisputable. The unfunded liabilities for the federal government are $127 trillion.
Washington, D.C. isn't the solution, it's the problem. Liberty is being assaulted at every turn, while Congress buries us in debt. The Founding Fathers knew this might happen. Article 5 of the Constitution gives the states the power to stop a runaway federal government, a convention of states to amend the Constitution. It's the only solution as big as the problem. It's time to stand up, speak up, and show up. Join us at conventionofstates.com.